Sometimes life throws us into situations we never imagined, moments that shape us in ways we can't undo. The story I'm about to share is one I've never told anyone before. It's about love, loss, guilt, and the hardest choices a person can face. If you stay with me until the end, I promise it's a story that will make you feel, think, and maybe even see life differently. This is not an easy story, but it's my truth. I ask you to stay with me, to really hear it, because it's a journey I've carried inside me for decades, one that has defined who I am. When I was 20 years old, I started dating a girl. She loved me with a passion that was all-consuming, giving everything she had without holding back. But the truth is, I never loved her the same way. The reasons are complicated, maybe a story for another time. At that point, I stayed in the relationship anyway. Maybe out of obligation, maybe out of fear of being alone, or maybe I was just too much of a coward to walk away from something I instinctively knew wasn't right. I often wonder how different my life might have been if I had the courage to leave. But hindsight is cruel in that way. It shows you the paths you didn't take and the pain you tried to ignore. We were together for 3 years. From the outside, it probably looked like we had it all figured out. But inside, I was drowning in guilt and resentment, constantly asking myself how I ended up in a relationship I didn't truly want. Every day felt like a choice between staying and running, yet I could not move. Despite everything, she remained devoted to me, her love unwavering, and I could not fault her for that. Her love was pure, and my inability to reciprocate it properly filled me with shame I couldn't shake. About 2.5 years into the relationship, she told me she was pregnant. I remember her face vividly, a mixture of hope and fear waiting to see my reaction. My heart sank. I forced a brave expression, but inside, panic consumed me. I hadn't wanted this. We had been careless only once, a single instance without protection, and that one moment changed everything. In that instant, I felt a crushing weight settle on my shoulders, heavier than anything I had ever carried. The life I imagined for myself seemed to vanish in a blur of fear and uncertainty. She was overjoyed despite the fear. I think she believed the baby would bring us closer together, solidify our bond and make us a real family. For me, however, it felt like a death sentence. I couldn't see a way forward. At 22, I felt trapped in a relationship I didn't want, facing a lifetime of responsibility I had never agreed to. I remember walking home after that conversation, the world around me blurred. I felt like I was suffocating under the weight of a life I hadn't chosen. Every thought was a battle, every heartbeat a reminder of the choices I hadn't made. Of course, I didn't tell her how I felt. I nodded, smiled faintly, and pretended to be supportive. Internally, I was praying, selfishly praying, for a way out. Every night I would lie awake, imagining impossible scenarios, begging for some kind of miracle to make it all disappear. I felt alone even when I was with her, trapped inside my own guilt and fear. Then, about 6 months into the pregnancy, everything changed. We learned that she had a damaged reproductive system. I can't recall all the medical specifics, but it meant her pregnancy was extremely high risk. The doctor said she needed to be hospitalized immediately and must remain bedridden for weeks. It was a nightmare I could not wake up from, a reality I wasn't prepared for and didn't know how to face. I was terrified for her, terrified for the baby, and terrified for myself, my cowardice, my selfishness, all staring back at me in stark reality. I practically lived at the hospital. I went to work during the day and rushed straight to her afterward. I brought her food, tried to lift her spirits, and did the little things, adjusting pillows, fluffing blankets, anything to make her more comfortable. I watched her face every day, noting the pain and fear she tried to hide. Every moment I spent there, I felt a mix of obligation, guilt, and helplessness. I was exhausted physically and emotionally, but I forced myself to keep going. Every night I left, I felt hollow, drained by the weight of knowing I could not undo the situation I was in. It was exhausting, but I persevered because I knew it was the right thing to do. Even if I didn't love her as she deserved, I owed her my support. Yet beneath it all, the same dark thoughts lingered. I wished it would all just disappear. I felt trapped in a nightmare with no escape. I hated myself for thinking that way, but I couldn't stop. There were moments when I cried alone, when the guilt threatened to swallow me whole, and yet I kept moving, mechanically, day after day. Then, one night, everything unraveled. Her water broke unexpectedly, far too early. The hospital erupted into chaos. Nurses shouting, machines beeping, the smell of antiseptic mixed with fear. The doctors explained that the baby wasn't ready to survive outside the womb, and if she were born and couldn't breathe, we would have to make a grim decision: resuscitate and risk permanent brain damage, or let her go. I stood there, holding her hand, terrified. My heart was pounding, my chest tight, every breath shallow. Ultimately, we made the heart-wrenching decision together, not to resuscitate if the baby couldn't breathe on her own. Our daughter was born. At first, she lay still. Then slowly she began to move, but she wasn't breathing. Her tiny body turned blue, then purple, then black. I froze, watching her struggle for air she could not draw. It was utterly horrifying. I can still see her vividly, delicate fingers, fragile chest rising and falling in vain, her face twisted in silent agony. Then, she stopped moving. I watched her life extinguish. My girlfriend sobbed uncontrollably. I could not move, I could not speak. All I could do was stare at a tiny life that had ended before it had truly begun. The guilt hit me harder than anything else. This was what I had prayed for, wasn't it? My way out. And yet, instead of relief, I felt overwhelming regret. I had not wanted this, not like this. I buried my feelings deep inside and tried to move on, but in truth, I never did. Every day since has been a battle with that guilt, replaying the moment over and over, questioning every choice I made, every thought I had. I have carried this secret for years. It has eaten away at me like a cancer. I have never told a soul, not friends, not family, not even a therapist. It is a part of me I have tried to bury, but no matter how hard I try, it always resurfaces, creeping into my thoughts when I least expect it. That guilt turned into a crippling depression. I have attempted to end my own life more than once. The anxiety is unrelenting, a weight on my chest that never lifts. Nightmares haunt me. I relive that moment endlessly, her tiny body, her desperate struggle to breathe, the way she turned blue, purple, and black. I wake drenched in sweat, gasping for air, consumed by the helplessness I felt then. I think about my daughter every single day, who she might have been, who she could have grown up to be. Would she have inherited my smile, her mother's eyes? What kind of person would she have become? I will never know, and that thought haunts me more than anything. I also think of her mother. She never knew how I truly felt during the pregnancy. She never knew about the prayers, the selfish thoughts, the desperate pleas to a God I wasn't even sure existed. She believed I was there out of love. Maybe I was, in my actions. But it does not feel that way. I feel as though I failed her. I do not know if I will ever forgive myself for my thoughts, for what I wished for the things I didn't do. I do not know if I deserve forgiveness. Perhaps this is my punishment, to carry this guilt for the rest of my life. Thank you for listening. Thank you for staying with me through this story. I know it's heavy and it's not easy to hear, but it's real. Life doesn't always give us the answers we want, and sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones we carry inside forever. If you relate in any way or know someone who might, please reflect on this story. And if you're struggling with guilt, grief, or depression, remember, you're not alone. Seeking help is a sign of courage, not weakness. Life can be unforgiving, and the choices we make, or fail to make, stay with us. But by sharing our stories, we can find a little peace, understanding, and maybe help someone else feel less alone. Thank you for listening, and for staying until the end. And remember, even in the darkest moments, speaking your truth can be the first step toward healing. The weight may never fully lift, but telling it out loud is the beginning of light in a long, long darkness.